Let me clear my throat first, sorry. Hi, I've been asked by a lot of students lately about what links one piece of literature to another. Obviously, you know, of course, that in the great sort of pantheon of literature, you've got these great novels that are seen as classics and other ones that are, you know, more modern. They might be slightly more experimental, far more contemporary. And the reason why we choose to read the more contemporary ones, like The Curious Incident of the Dog, is because we're hoping to engage younger readers, obviously, into the act of writing and reading. Some of the more interesting experimental books over the last few years have actually dealt with the act of reading. The one that comes to mind is an Italian one called Marco Valdo If on a Winter's Night a Traveller by Italo Calvino, which really just looks at the art of reading, or the act of reading, and how it informs the way that the narrative unfolds. He's very self-conscious about, you are now reading this novel by Italo Calvino, make yourself comfortable, etc., etc. Well, that's one way of doing it. The other way of doing it is to tell a story. Sometimes I say that if it's a good story well told, then it's done its job. There are lots, of course, of good stories well told. Three of them are here, I think. We're looking today at Moby Dick by Herman Melville, The Red Badge of Courage by Stephen Crane, two American great novels, and Mark Haddon's The Curious Incident of the Dog in the Nighttime. Now, I don't know whether these are worth reading in their entirety. Look, the books are, of course. My narrative on these, my commentary on these, may not be worth reading all the way through. But I just thought that for this lesson, I'll just read through the notes and show you some images. What I want to do is, as the title of this suggests, is look at what anchors a narrative. That means what brings it together, what allows it to. I don't know how to get rid of that highlighting now. Anyway, what anchors the narrative? What is it that gives it a grounding in either real life or even in the mind of its characters? So what I thought I'd do is look at a particular description that comes either from the early stages of a novel, or at the beginning, right at the beginning of a novel, that allows the reader into the world of the novel. And I suppose one of the interesting things of including The Curious Incident of the Dog in the Nighttime is that we're looking at totally different contexts. Now, your teachers have probably spoken to you about this, the idea that it's context that affects the way, in some ways, of how we see the novel. There's your context, the context of the writer, in which case, some of these are almost 200 years old, the Melville one and The Red Badge of Courage, set during the American Civil War. So it's they're old books, but that doesn't reduce their significance in terms of the way that they inform us about the way we live our lives. Now, I'm losing all of this writing ability. I'll just write that back down there. I don't know why I lost it. Context is important, as you know. Just comes from the two Latin words, con, with writing, or with the idea in mind of what's going on at the same time. Okay, as you can see, I'm not too computer savvy here. So what I'm going to have to do is make mistakes all the way through, and then you can rip me off later on. So what I thought I'd do is just give you an idea of what I think about this sense of making comparisons. What are we looking at? What links are we looking at? And why is it that I'm so interested, and I've always been fascinated by the tone of the beginning of a novel? How does it actually forecast or foreshadow what's to come? I think each of these three sections, or these three excerpts in these important bits of literature, works of literature, do just that. How do they basically suck you into that space so that you can enjoy the novel and see it as a more compelling experience for yourself? So, the most enduring literature, much of which was written long before the technology of film and photography, contains compelling use of language, which can help the reader to foresee much of a novel's tone. So in this company, Haddon's narrative is the odd man out because its narrative is deliberately structured to echo the state of mind of the narrator. It's not just a story, it's written in a specific way that echoes that sense of the narrator's state of mind. In that aspect, Curious Incident, it'd have to emerge as being kind of, in terms of, in comparative terms to the others we're looking at today, as experimental, and it contrasts with the two others. They're classically traditional, the linear narrative, the story, the characters. But these beginnings, or early excerpts in the case of Moby Dick's ship, the Pequod, show how talented authors, and each of these blokes are, genii, is that how you still say it? In terms of how they use the pen, the written word, to get their ideas across. So how talented authors can produce convincing and emotionally powerful images of things, places, people, events and experiences. And the reason for that is probably the very absence of visual technology at the time of the first two examples. There was no such thing as a camera at the time of Herman Melville's writing of the whale story, and there were early attempts at photography. Some of the most brilliant photographs that a fellow called Matthew Brady took during the Civil War are still used as historical sources. But of course it was a big, bulky experiment in visual technology. Not everyone had a camera at the time. It's helped, this sort of technology has made our own generation very familiar with the language of film, graphics, television, computer-generated images and other types of communication, which rely on visual cues apart from the written word. And interestingly, it's the novel by Haddon that comes across as more stilted and staccato. Those of you that are music students will know what I mean by that term. And that, again, is done for deliberate effect, I should say. If you wrote something in a staccato way, which is it sounds a bit hit and miss, it's got a sort of a robotic beat-by-beat tone, you may not have wanted that, in which case you'd have to make your writing slightly more fluid. But again, Haddon does this deliberately. All right, we're almost there. So authors such as Melville and Crane had to rely on their word skills and imaginative powers in order to achieve then what a powerful film might achieve now. It was more difficult to do then. However, when it was done well, like in these ones that we're going to read today, the literary quality of the writing comes through effortlessly and convincingly. There's a few little things that you might want to do as a class in terms of activities to make this reasonably effective as a formative task. Read the description of the ship Pequod in the beginning of the novels. That's what you've got to do. In what ways do these beginnings prepare the reader for what might come, and how effective is the writing in terms, hopefully, that's what I'll be addressing as we read through these. Herman Melville, the first one we're looking at is the description of the ship Pequod, which is the whaling ship that's featured in the novel. I'm going to take a break now. I'll come back and we'll continue. Thanks, guys.